We use the term love in a lot of different contexts, but some differentiations can be worthwhile to take note of. There would seem to be one use of the term love such that makes it correct or appropriate to say that we should love absolutely everybody. There is another connotation of the term that seems to make it correct to say that we should not love everybody and we should love very few. There's yet another sense of the term love which makes it correct to say that we can love whatever and whoever we want. Let's start with the latter connotation since it might be a bit easier to explicate. When we say sentences such as, I love ice cream, I love my pet, I love, you know, just so and so that I casually know. Another word that might be therein more appropriate would be affection. We can and we do develop affection and or feelings of familiarity quite quickly, depending on our individual temperament. And those feelings can concern objects, they can concern places, they can concern experiences, and they can concern people. And we tend to lump all of that sometimes in one category. I can have feelings of affection for some or another spot from childhood that sometimes I pass by. I get those feelings of, what's the word, nostalgia maybe. I can have affection for a favorite food. This is my comfort food. I can have affection for a couch. This is my comfort spot. I can have affection in this way for people. I know you. I'm familiar with you. I feel some affection for you. Now, with that said, this kind of affection is perhaps purely, or more or less purely, predicated on feeling. It's basically, do I feel it or do I not feel it? It's not a question of will. It's not a question of intent. It's not a question of any thought. It's just, do I feel affection for this couch? Yes, great. I'm going to sit there when I can and want to. No, I don't want to go there. Do I feel affection for this person? Yes. All right. They give me that warm, fuzzy feeling. I'll hang around them. No, goodbye. And so, fine. That's certainly an aspect of human experience, but we should not mistake that for anything other than what it is, which is just a feeling that can concern, again, objects, animals, anything altogether. What about love in a different sense of the term? We said there's two different senses that can be touched upon at present. That would be, perhaps we can take the first one, that would be love as it concerns willing, intending the good of others. And that would be the love that it is appropriate to direct towards any and all. Right? Meaning, I may or may not feel feelings of affection towards you, but I can still, as a matter of will, right, as a matter of understanding, as a matter of intent, I can still strive for your good and want your good and will your good. So, for instance, let's say that I have a family member that is not very likable, let's say. Say they have a problematic personality, they're not very nice, and consequently, I have a tough time feeling any affection for them. I don't like them, to be perfectly blunt. Does that mean that I cannot love them? If love is used as a synonym for the term affection, then sure, I just don't feel it. The heart wants what it wants. I don't like you. I don't love you. However, if by love is meant a question concerning, or concerned with will, concerned with understanding, then I can still, even if I don't like you, even if I don't feel affection for you, I can still love you in that way. I can still hope for your highest development. I can still hope that you overcome your issues. I can still hope that you straighten out your life and find genuine success, whatever that looks like for you. Now, this is a kind of love that it is appropriate to aim at any and all, because by definition, at least in principle, it cannot go wrong. Because if we define it correctly, what we mean by love in this sense is that, for example, a criminal stops being a criminal, a killer stops being a killer, a thief stops being a thief, an abuser stops being an abuser, a dictator stops being a dictator, a genocidal warlord stops being a genocidal warlord. So in this sense, if I say I love the genocidal warlord, it does not mean that I feel affection for the genocidal lord. It doesn't mean they give me a warm, fuzzy feeling like my favorite couch or food might. It means that I hope, in theory, it could be that there's nothing I can do about it. It's a purely hypothetical question. But in principle, I would want this genocidal warlord to stop being genocidal, to stop being a warlord, to repent, right? To right their wrongs, to do what they can to do right by the way of the people they hurt, as far as that is possible. I wish for their good, right? Which means wishing the good of anybody that's involved with them. When I say in this connotation of the term that it is appropriate to, or I ought to, try to love a very toxic person, maybe even an abusive person, I don't mean that I love their toxicity or I love their abuse. It means that I would have their toxicity and their abuse cease, because they have a personal transformation and their personality, or deeper than that, their character drastically improves. So this kind of love, in theory, emphasis on in theory, cannot go wrong, because it can never, by definition, the way it's being defined, it can never involve wanting that a person persist in some kind of destructive path, be it destructive to them and or others. It can never mean that we would have somebody with a character in serious need of improvement, that we would have that person retain that poor character. No. Love in this sense means I want your highest good. I might not know what that is. I probably don't. But in principle, I do. So we see that even though this could be mostly hypothetical, it's useful because, first of all, it's a question of will. And very often, most often, we do not have this form of love at all. We would have the person that has hurt us completely and utterly collapse. We would have them destroyed, not the bad in them destroyed, but them in their totality destroyed. Somebody offended my vanity, somebody offended my pride, somebody makes me self-conscious, somebody did something, maybe even objectively, wrong to me, such as they stole something from me. But instead of ardently, passionately, doesn't need to be passionately, but just willing, right? I don't have to have any emotion involved here. Just willing that, hoping that, if that's not an emotion, that bad in them would die out and they would kind of live as a broader individuality, far as that is possible. I hope that the whole thing is gone, or the whole person is gone. Right? So that's not love. That's something else. Hatred, definitely not love. Love in this sense means if you're bad, I hope that the bad in you dies out, but you live. If you have a problem, I hope that the problem dissipates, but you persist. If you're doing something self-destructive, or you have a negative lifestyle, or you have serious, deep character issues, I hope that all of that dies out. But you, something real to you, persist, and that you eventually blossom and flourish as a person. Again, that love ought to be, in principle, universally applicable. There is nobody that it is not appropriate to say concerning whom this person should not be loved in this sense, because love would always mean their highest good, whatever that might be. Now, lastly, we mentioned that love can also be used in a sense such that makes it correct to say that only the few people should be its subject. Here, another synonym for that form of love could be that of adoration and admiration and respect, profound respect. This kind of love should be very select. Why? Well, we can ask ourselves, what is in principle worthy of love? Hypothetically speaking, Would it be blood and bones? No. Would it be food or what comes after food once it's digested in the digestive tract? No. Would it be kidneys and livers and blood vessels and brain tissue? No. Would it be various concepts and fantasies and attachments and who knows what? No. None of that clearly is worthy of love, hypothetically. Hypothetically, what is worthy of love are higher human values, or the eternal values, so to say, such as truth, such as goodness, such as beauty, such as love. Right? However, with that said, where are those values? Can we pluck them out of the air? Can we, love them in theory just as something we're imagining? No. Those values have to be instantiated for them to find reality in our experience, at least have to be instantiated in some or another concrete person or persons. And consequently, it seems to follow that in this sense of adoration, it only makes sense and it's only healthy and ordered to love those who properly embody higher values, who properly portray a well-ordered human being, whose highest affections are for the highest and which trickle down from there. What kind of love would this sense of the term love preclude? Well, when I say I love, the serial killer at the prison, person such that tend to get a lot of fan mail, and when I say that I love the abusive person, when I say that I love the vulgar person, when I say that I love even myself, such as I am at present, this would not be the appropriate connotation of that term. I cannot put at the pinnacle of my hierarchy of values and affections any of the aforementioned, which is what we are essentially without any kind of higher values, without any kind of embodiment of anything beyond just the corporal. Right? Again, concerning myself, what is lovable? Is it that I like to eat? Is it that I like to sleep? Any of that? Right? That I have digestive processes? No, that's not worth loving. What about me is lovable is my possibilities of humanity, my ideal of individuality, my capacity for self-transcendence, for overcoming my self-centeredness, right? For love, for goodness, for truth. That about me is lovable. To the extent that I can conform myself to something beyond myself, that's the extent to which it is worthwhile to love me in this sense, meaning to adore, to respect, to cherish me in this sense. And when we love the unlovable in this sense, then that is problematic and disordered. And ought not to be called love in the true sense. Could be called attachment, could be called disordered affection, whatever it might be, but not love in this true sense. So anyhow, there could be and have been probably offered other connotations of the term love as well. But the three ones that we have discussed are: one, affection, which can extend to anything at all, to animals, to my pet insect, to my favorite food, and even to people in this emotional sense. Two would be love as it concerns will, as it concerns intent, which in principle ought to be directed at each and every person, maybe even form of life, starting with oneself. Whether or not I like you, whether or not I'm attached to you, whether or not I have affection for you, let me at least try to will your good. Just like I can will to get up off the couch or out of bed and go to work, whether or not I want to on some level. I can try to will your good, irrespective of anything else. And the third sense of the term love would be that of adoration. And we should only adore that which is adorable. And what is adorable is not only cute kittens and puppies and babies, but the higher human values: goodness, truth, love, beauty, and such. Consequently, it is ordered, it is proper to love those characters, those people that embody those values, that attain to a higher human ideal, right? To love them more than we love, say, again, whomever else. And that consequently can help order us out to where our first love is something that is highest, as opposed to our first love being something that speaks to our vanity or our pride or our affection and so forth. Anyhow, 3 forms of love that can be worth thinking about. Thank you for listening.